Marco Ciappelli opens another episode of On Location, explaining that while his usual co-host Sean Martin isn't joining today, they've just returned from extensive coverage of Black Hat in Las Vegas, the premier hacking and cybersecurity event. Today, Marco shifts gears into more familiar territory. Not that he isn't familiar with cybersecurity, but he's definitely more focused on the societal rather than technical aspects. The event they're discussing is IBC, happening in Amsterdam, which has been running since 1967, though Marco isn't sure if it was always held in Amsterdam. His guest is Mark Smith, who serves on the board at IBC and co-leads the Accelerator Program. Marco welcomes Mark to the show. Mark Smith thanks Marco for having him, expressing how great it is to meet him and discuss all things IBC. He admits he sometimes scares himself thinking about how close the event is, with excitement building as it approaches. Marco asks if Mark still feels pressure even after being in the industry so long. Mark describes it as a nice, healthy pressure, explaining that if you go on stage and you're not a little nervous, you're probably doing something wrong. Marco agrees completely, sharing his background. He's been immersed in the media, technology, and entertainment world for more than 30 years. He was part of the GSMA, which built the Mobile World Congress in Barcelona, where he spent the best part of 23 years. He created numerous programs there, including the Media Innovation Program, and served as head of marketing communications for over 20 years. Technology events are literally in his bloodstream. Marco explains why he follows technology, noting that people who follow him know he comes from social technology, social media, and communication backgrounds academically, then moved into branding and marketing. He's always been close to what mass media does for and with society. It's a mirror relationship. Entertainment reflects all of that. He suggests starting with a short history, noting that in 1967, technology was quite different. They were broadcasting then, but now they're doing so much more. Mark explains that what's bigger than the show itself is that television is 100 years old this year. There are differences of opinion about which format ultimately won, but it was 1925 when John Logie Baird, a student at Strathclyde University in Glasgow, first demonstrated the concept of television in the labs. They'll actually be celebrating that milestone with some activities at IBC this year. The show did indeed begin in 1967 in Brighton, UK. Mark isn't sure how long it remained there before moving, but the origins are certainly in the UK. It's been in Amsterdam for many years now, and the RAI showground is very familiar to people, along with the famous beach bar where everybody congregates at the end of each day. This year they have 14 halls packed with media and entertainment technology, featuring 1,350 exhibitors and nearly 300 speakers. They're expecting 45,000 visitors over the 4 days. Marco asks Mark to break down what people can expect to see, especially for those who haven't been there before or want to know what's changed or new compared to previous years. Mark walks through the halls systematically. Halls 1, 2, and 3 focus on delivery, distribution, and satellite technologies. Halls 4 and 5 cover content everywhere, streaming and OTT platforms, cloud services, cybersecurity, and app development. Halls 6 and 7 showcase post-production graphics, media production, and data storage. Halls 8 and 10 feature multi-technologies, production management, audio, and transmission. Halls 9, 11, 12, and 13 are dedicated to production equipment, cameras, lenses, lighting, video, and accessories. Mark expects to spend most of his time in Hall 14, which focuses on future technologies. They call it the Future Tech Hub, covering AI, 5G, ad tech, blockchain, and virtual production. This is where the Accelerator Media Innovation Program will be housed, alongside future tech stages and Google's Hackathon Hackfest. There are also outdoor exhibitors around Congress Square and outside Hall 13. All of this spans 4 days from September 12th to 15th, hosting over 45,000 visitors. Marco expresses his interest in attending as he's planning to be in Europe at that time. He's particularly drawn to Hall 14, given his show's focus on technology, society, and their mutual effects. He's fascinated by how they're examining what's coming, where they are currently, and how technology is changing content production. Marco observes that nowadays, everybody is a content creator, though he's still figuring out whether that's good or bad. The technology enables things they couldn't even imagine 25 to 30 years ago, let alone in 1967, though that era had its own cool moments, like seeing images from the moon in 1969. He asks Mark about innovations that have particularly struck him this year. Mark offers to explain the innovation program he runs, which will provide context for his answer. He started the program with colleagues in 2019, just before the pandemic, when the industry was experiencing real acceleration in remote production strategies. The pandemic forced much of this change around remote and decentralized production, accelerating the concept of cloud for media. There were numerous disruptive technologies emerging. The big shift from hardware to digital software and IP created transformative pressure on the industry, fueling innovation. They saw immersive technologies like AR, VR, mixed reality, and immersive HDR, plus new connectivity forms through fiber and 5G in production, alongside regulatory challenges around OTT platforms versus traditional broadcast. It created a perfect storm of change. This led to creating the Accelerator Media Innovation Program as a meeting place for technology buyers and sellers to outline their challenges, the things keeping them awake at night, and what they wanted to learn. They built a collaboration framework around it. While everyone talked about partnerships, there was nowhere for them to actually happen. The Accelerator program provides a destination and safe environment for broadcasters, studios, OTT platforms, and rights owners to identify what they need to understand better and solve, but quickly, not over years. It's designed as a 6-month sprint toward learning and developing solutions, then showcasing them as proof of concepts at IBC. They run about 9 projects annually and have completed over 50 projects since 2019, involving approximately 350 organizations ranging from the largest to smallest, including every major household media and entertainment brand. This year's key challenges center on AI. They have projects examining generative AI frameworks that enable broadcasters to efficiently create various media content types, including scripts, highlights, and short-form videos. AI assistant agents and agentic AI are particularly hot topics, focusing on AI-driven production systems that seamlessly integrate control room workflows and enhance live production with intelligent automation. Other projects explore ultra-low latency, with companies like Comcast driving efforts to achieve broadcast-like low latencies, glass to glass, from camera to audience screen in under 2 seconds over public internet. These are significant challenges. They're also working on content provenance, examining tools that enable organizations to integrate content credentials. C2PA represents this year's Content Provenance Initiative, looking at workflow integration for signing and verifying media, tracking sources, and manipulations. Additional projects cover private 5G technology. They've seen Accelerator Program projects progress from lab to the world's biggest sporting events, demonstrating the program's value. They're exploring how private 5G can extend to airwave coverage for producing programming across long distances, like cycle races or marathons filmed from aircraft. Other projects examine master control, cloud sustainability and workflows, and multi-vendor software media exchange for format interoperability. Marco finds this fascinating, noting how it represents the convergence of multiple technologies that enable major steps forward in specific industries. He points out that you couldn't achieve certain things like low latency without the infrastructure speed to support it. Coming from mobile technology, Mark understands this progression from 2G through 5G. Marco transitions to discussing his recent experience at cybersecurity events, where Agent AI was the major buzzword, AI systems helping humans in security operations centers. Given Mark's long industry experience with innovation, Marco asks about perception and acceptance. He wonders if people are nervous about living with AI and Agent AI, questioning whether the attitude is cautious control or enthusiastic adoption. Mark explains that he works with people passionate about technology and innovation in newsrooms and studios, creative people who are probably more excited than anything else because AI represents an opportunity to eliminate laborious processes. Many production technology processes are quite boring, and in newsroom environments, some content can be detrimental to health. Being able to automate these processes and remove that boredom is significant. AI is actually creating jobs too. Who would have thought AI prompter would become a job? Yet it is. You're now prompting machines and teaching them to learn processes. Mark sees this as exciting, a way to revolutionize the excitement of content creation and provide more creative choices while utilizing and harnessing this technology. While there's been fear, he believes it's about whose hands these technologies are in. In his media world, it's about positive technology use to change efficiency, quality, and creativity. He's excited, his colleagues are excited, and they see it creating opportunities rather than negatives. Marco agrees, then shifts to discussing the other side of the screen, how this affects viewers. He recalls the streaming industry's growth, creating a revolution for traditional broadcasting through personalization of consumption patterns. He remembers excitement around sports viewing options, like choosing camera angles to become your own director. While there was initial excitement, he questions whether people actually enjoy this control beyond the first try, as many might prefer trusting the director's expertise. Marco asks about reception on the viewer side, whether innovation is successfully bringing more customization to shows, programs, and entertainment forms. Mark believes this particularly appeals to sports and live sports fans, who absolutely consume different camera angles and perspectives of their favorite sports and players. Looking at Formula One, football, and other sports, especially the younger generation, there's tremendous appetite. Coming from an older generation himself, Mark knows from esports and live sports in exciting areas that it's still early days for feeding fans what they really want, with tremendous innovation still to come. The more immersive superfans can become, the more exciting it gets. While there are opportunities in different content genres, the live sports world continues massive growth and development in creating content for fans. Marco asks about social media and content creation platforms like TikTok, noting these are no longer novelties but real entertainment forms and channels. This amazes him, given his age and background studying sociology of communication when internet existed but wasn't as popular as traditional newspaper reading. He connects this to provenance and content certification. When you don't have editorial teams or big publication names behind broadcasting, you need to know whether content is true, real, or fake. Mark finds this interesting, noting that in the UK, their regulator Ofcom oversees television, communications, mobile services, and some online platform elements. Ofcom recently reported that YouTube is the second most viewed platform in the UK, speaking volumes about streaming and user-generated content growth. Mark confirms Marco is absolutely right about content manipulation, fake news, video manipulation, and synthetic content creation being worries and dangers. However, he believes human nature always finds ways to solve problems and understand challenges. They're at the beginning of an explosion in these areas. This makes the Accelerator program exciting because they're working on specific but important forms of content understanding, content provenance throughout the entire value chain, from creation through management, storage, distribution, and manipulation. They're developing better ways to understand content and tools, helping users understand origins, accuracy, value, and provenance. Trusting content is more critical than ever. As they wrap up the conversation, Marco asks whether these discussions happen in corridors between halls or through actual panels and presentations, and whether there are keynotes to highlight. Mark explains they have a main conference with great speakers from across industry sectors, plus multiple stages around the event, showcase stages, content everywhere stages, and future tech stages. Each Accelerator program project gets an hour on stage, and much content is free at IBC. Around the different halls and themes, there are stages where registered attendees can simply show up for amazing free content. Before wrapping, Mark highlights their close collaboration with Google Cloud on a Hackfest, a first for IBC. They're inviting young broadcast engineers, software developers, and creatives to work on weekend challenges during IBC, with prizes available. They're working with Formula E, the electric racing format, to support the Hackfest. They'll also feature an AI-coached penalty shootout, where participants take penalties while being coached by a famous football coach on their penalty-taking style and skills. This happens in Hall 14, alongside many other AI aspects and exciting content forms. There's something for everyone across the show, but innovation is really the buzzword and fuel for this year's IBC. Marco reflects on always attending these events, including CES in the United States, as ways to look into the future. You put on your thinking hat, examine new technology, discuss implications, and consider what consequences might emerge, what new jobs or content types might be created. He admits he can swing from dystopian to utopian perspectives in fractions of seconds. But in this industry, this vertical, with lots of lateral connections across multiple industries, he thinks it's all positive as long as they can control provenance somewhat. That's the key issue, especially with cybersecurity lenses, plus privacy and identity concerns. Mark absolutely agrees, noting that sports rights values reach billions these days, showing how important content is from cybersecurity perspectives. Ensuring content protection is critical to the industry. Cybersecurity is a key issue everyone must guard against to protect the value of incredible sporting and other cinematic content. Marco thanks Mark for his time, calling the conversation fascinating and exactly matching his interests. He believes his listeners will really enjoy this type of discussion. He's looking forward to hopefully attending and finding Mark there. The event runs September 12th through 15th, 2025 in Amsterdam, Netherlands. Marco promises to include links for connecting with Mark and his team, plus visiting their very well-designed and already exciting website. Mark thanks Marco in return, expressing how great it was chatting with him. Marco wraps up by encouraging everyone to stay tuned for more content, promising that if he attends, listeners will hear more stories directly from the floor.